Cheers to your 21st birthday, Pedro Oswaldo. I'm proud of myself because this time I did not forget to record the cake for you guys before I delivered it to the party. I could actually not find the party place. I had to have a little vecino help me and find the door to where the party was happening. The birthday boy was not aware and the mother was super scared y bien enojado. But in the end, it was a phenomenal party. I had my camera with me because I wanted to take pictures of the cake on site, and I ended up taking pictures of the whole family. We now have like super souvenirs of this wonderful moment, and I'm so grateful we were a part of it. I received this order for 15 people yesterday morning, literally. So I just spent the night making it, and I thought I would make a video on how I made the swirls here, the salt of the tequila, the lime, maybe the tequila bottle, because I did cheat to get this one done. And probably also the fail on how to cover a cake when you try and do it in black. Because in black it's so hard. I like the results. It was a fun project. This is how I submitted my design for approval. Use the eye. Chocolate cake number 2 is ready. As it cools on the stove, we're gonna make a financier with 7 to 8 egg whites, 240 grams of powdered sugar, 150 grams of almond flour, and 60 grams of a gluten-free mix, 1-to-1. If you're not gluten-free, you can replace this with wheat. You know how usually I measure with the heart? For this recipe, you want to be quite exact. We're just missing the 200 grams of butter. We'll melt this in the microwave. I have set the oven at 428 Fahrenheit. Butter. Gonna blend this together. In this recipe, I add 2 teaspoons of the Armagnac. I may as well, he's turning 21, right? It's gonna add deep flavor to the vanilla part of the cake. The first financier is ready. I have to let it sit for a little bit so it doesn't completely flop with the change of temperature, and then the new batter is already ready for the next one. The story behind this cake is funny. So my friend Diana is contacting me last night super late. Her son happens to be turning 21 tomorrow, and she asked if I could make the cake for her. Of course I will. But it's the first time I'm making a cake in a day and a half and 1 night. So let's see how it happens. And when she asked, I thought she would come with, can I have an ocean cake, a beach cake, a surf cake? Nope. She said, my son is not drinking yet, obviously, but he will be able to. So we want it to be a tequila cake. So I knew nothing about tequila. The only thing I drink is this. And I went online, and this is how the design turned out. And we settled on it this morning. So basically, it's going to be a black cake with a glass just like this one in 2D on the cake, a cocktail shaker mixer, a tequila bottle, which I looked online to know how it looks like, and quarters of lime, maybe a piece of lime on the edge of the glass like it is in reality, the name of her son, cheers to 21, and to imitate the salt that's around the glass of tequila usually, I'm gonna use these. These are like pearls of sugar. They come from France. And they will just give a hint of white on top of the black cake, so it's gonna probably give some light to it. Just like the lime is gonna give the pop of color. So this project is really fun. Let's see how it turns out. The last cake is baked. This time I made the financier because I think it just has more of a sturdy base for a cake that's higher but smaller. The second part of the process that usually takes place on the second day, but right now takes place in the middle of the afternoon of day one, since I only have a day to make it, is to build the cake. So we'll create the whipping cream so we can build a sturdy base, stacking our cakes with cream in between. The cream is ready. I made 4 cakes. I have 2 financiers and 2 chocolate cakes. The goal is to have, even though it's a smaller cake, a higher cake, because I just made them today, and usually I let them sit till the end of the day and I only build the cream on day 2. I have put them in the fridge and I hope that they're cool enough that my cream is not gonna melt as I apply it in between my cakes. And I'm gonna alternate financier and chocolate cakes, so every single piece of the cake has both flavors. I'm gonna keep the cake that has the best base for the top. So I will apply some cream on the bottom because this cake will need transportation, so we don't want it to fall from the plate. The cream is gonna be acting like glue here. We center it to the plate. Some cream is gonna come to the side. That's on purpose. This is what we want. And then we apply just a thin layer of cream before we add the second cake. And I think I want it like that because this is a little bit rounded and I have the opposite issue on my chocolate cake that's coming. Actually, with 3 cakes is already quite high. This is the height of the drawing. It's already the size of the glass. Let's start. Apply cream on top and the sides, and then keep your spatula super straight and just spin your cake so you're gonna erase any difference in volume between the layers of cakes that are composing your tier. Almost like a tower, it cannot be a peace tower. See how it's a peace tower right now? There we go. It has to be as straight as possible. It's that tower in Italy in the city of Pise. And when you look at it, it's completely like that. You think that the builder was fully drunk. Potentially it's possible. It makes sense with that cake too, because it's a tequila cake, remember? Anyhow, we want the edge of that cake to be sharp. I mean, that's the goal, because I will put some piece of lime like I would on a glass of a cocktail. So I don't want my edges to be all ocean. Let's let it sit in the fridge while I'm making the fondant. Starting the fondant with 2 pouches of the gelatin. And half a cup of very cold water that comes from the fridge. I'll stir it a little bit and I'll let it sit for approximately 3 minutes till it becomes hard. Like I will be able to flip my bowl, it's not falling. And meanwhile, my gelatin is hardening. I need to figure out which green color is the right color for the lime. I think that this green is pretty close to the skin. For the inside, it's almost yellowish. We'll have black, of course, for the cover of the cake. We'll have gray, which is basically putting less black into white fondant, and white, so I do not dye that one. And the silver is going to be this little baby right here. So when I shake it, the silver powder inside the gray is going to spread, and with a little brush, I'll be able to just paint by hand the details that we want to have silver. By now, our gelatin is ready. I told you I'm not trusting myself. We'll make the fondant, so bear with me because the next step is gonna be the fun step. We'll, of course, dye the fondant, the portions that we need to match the design, but we'll start decorating this cake. It's the first time in history I'm doing all of this in one day. So we wait till our gelatin is actually completely melted. And again, let me just remind you, it's melting down, so there's water in here. The gelatin is now ready and completely melted. We'll add 1 cup of the corn syrup, 2 tablespoons of the vegetable glycerin, and 1/4 cup of the Crisco, the shortening, in pieces so it melts faster. And I'll see you again once it's melted. Your solution is ready. Everything is melted. I don't see no chunks of the Crisco anymore. So I'm gonna stop the gas, put it aside, and I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of the vanilla extract. I stir it a little bit. The vanilla is colored brown, of course, but it's not gonna color your fondant. Your fondant is gonna turn out to be pure white without burning yourself. So you wait for a little bit. Take the solution and put it into a bowl where, as I was waiting for this to melt, I already put 4 cups of powdered sugar. I do not want to wait because I cannot do it this time. So I'm going to use these and transfer over my solution. I'm going to stir the solution into the powdered sugar until it becomes blended. And once it's blended, we'll add more powdered sugar. We want to go to 14.5 to 16 cups max, depends on the weather, the humidity level, but also on how packed each of your cups are. So as you get to 14, you want to go really slow, not to over compact your fondant, and then it's not as easily workable. It's going to be a black dress, which is the hardest because that's the darkest of all. So I will try not to have my fondant too solid, let's say, in the white before I dye it, because I want it smooth still in the black. See how blended it gets? Now it's ready for the 5th cup. And as you can tell, I've already prepared my surface because at some point it's going to be really hard to continue stirring from the bowl. So I'll have to transfer the solution over to the mat, and the mat is already ready. And by cup number 7, I'll now use the spatula because my other tool is not really helpful anymore because it just becomes more solid. Stir it till it's blended. Add number 8. You want to go slow and just fold it in. This is 9 cups of the powdered sugar. It's becoming quite hard to stir it here, so I'm going to transfer it over. So I prepare my mat. I will cover my hands in the sugar, spread the sugar right like this, and I will transfer whatever stage my fondant is at over onto this powdered sugar bed. My fondant is still warm. So again, I have powdered sugar on my hands. We have 13 cups here. I'm doing the number 14 right there in advance because my hands will be covered in fondant. And I'll just fold over my fondant that's not ready yet, the powdered sugar that was on the mat. If you don't, it's going to be extremely sticky. I'm accelerating this portion of the video because I already have a whole video as to how to make fondant from scratch, which I can put the link in description for you guys. Basically, you see, I am folding the fondant like I would a loaf of bread. And really, until it's not sticky to your fingers, it's not ready, and you can continue adding your sugar. You just have to keep in mind that it's going to be between 14.5 to 16 cups of powdered sugar total for the proportions that I gave you for the liquids. Doing it like you do le pétrissage du pain. And here is my fondant ready. There you go, that's your loaf. So I'm about to dye half of the fondant in the black so we can cover the cake with it. And then we will need enough fondant to make the cocktail glass, the shot, the tequila bottle, the cocktail shaker and the pieces of lime. So I'm thinking we will need some white, some gray, and some of the two greens. We'll divide the fondant accordingly right now, so I don't end up with not enough fondant. I think I want the bottle of vodka and the cocktail shaker to be some sort in a relief, like a 3D type, if I can, because I have the room on the platter since the cake is not wide. It uses more fondant than if it was 2D flat. I'm already putting my gloves on for dyeing the black fondant. So half of it should be in black. This is a lot of fondant, you guys. Here, so this will be dyed in black. This portion will be in white. Then we need, I said, some gray. The gray is going to be mainly the letters that will be silver and the cocktail shaker. I think I'm going to paint the parts of the glass that will be in gray. Let's do this in gray. I'm going to do the dark green and the inside of my lime. The dark green will be the least because it's going to be just a layer. My green that will have some yellow in it will be this one. And I think we've covered every single color of the cake. Let's dye this in the black. I will put quite a bit of coloring. And that's the reason why we didn't put enough of the powdered sugar earlier, because otherwise it would become too thick. And I'm wearing gloves again, and I'm even wearing two on this side, so I can remove it easily. And once this portion is dyed, I will cover the tier of the cake immediately before dyeing the other colors. It's becoming hard to do it in the bowl, so I'll do it here. Of course, it's easier to dye very little portions versus dresses. So if you're starting and this is for your first cake, don't start thinking, oh, I'm gonna make a black dress. This is probably the hardest dress of all. You wanna first do a white one. Your fondant is workable, is cooperating. Then on the second cake, maybe you can risk yourself with a colored dress. But to color fondant is easy. To then work fondant that has been colored dark is not as easy if it's for big pieces, and dresses is the biggest that you can make, right? There's your black. Hopefully it's gonna darken with time, as it always does. If I do it more, see how it's gonna become like crumby. So that's gonna be my best. You cover your mat with the powdered sugar. The last thing you want is your fondant to stick to the surface. That part of making the fondant in black flat so it could be the cover of my tier was an absolute nightmare. I have put probably too much powdered sugar when I dyed the fondant in black. That's the first thing. The second thing is I'm not equipped with the right mat because my mat was a little sticky no matter what I would do to avoid it and prevent the issue. And so I can tell you that right after making that cake, I did invest in a $14 mat because this one from IKEA is like 15 years old. And clearly it's not doing the job no more. And I also got a roller because my wooden roller that I have to cover in cellophane to show you how to make cake dresses, I'm done. So this time I invested in like a $30 baking kit because I absolutely need something that's working so I don't have to redo these covers over and over again. What you're seeing here accelerated is me trying to cover the cake 3 times. So the first time I did it, it glued to the surface. I had to remake it a ball and restart over and redo it. The second time I did it, I could not unstick it from the cellophane. So I had to use my leg to take the cellophane out because I would have needed a third arm, which was complicated. And I ended up just capitulating and considering that, okay, it will have holes. It's not pretty. And what I'll do is I'll make a very thin extra layer on top of the current fondant that I already put on the cake that I cannot remove anymore because now it's full of cream, right? I will do the top in the size of my baking molds. And the sides of the cake, I will do like a massive wide ribbon and do it all at once, transferring it over with cellophane. I mean, I was so desperate. My son came to the kitchen and was like, Mom, can I help you? And the poor kid, it was probably like super late already, and he was still doing his summer geometry, but he thought, she has more stress than I do right now, so I'm gonna go help her. Maybe she needs a pair of hands. There you go. I knew it would be hard. Well, it was a massive fail. Then I dyed the gray, the dark green, and the light green portions of the fondant so I could start the decorations the same night. Usually the decorations, I would really start them on the day number 4. I started by making the glass because it's in front of the cake and I wanted it to be covering the first tier of the fondant where the ribbon was meeting, like a seam that I wanted to hide. And once this was put on the cake, now I had the center of the cake and I could start all the other decorations and assess the size that they had to be in. I used the gray fondant. I'm making ribbons. As you can tell, my tool is not making ribbons that are thin enough to make the glass the way I wanted to, so I did it then by hand with a knife. And I tried several times, I'm not gonna lie, but in the end, the cocktail glass was a set of 5 ribbons, very thin, in the middle front side of the cake and a little bit on top to look more 3D than it was 2D. Once Cheers to 21 was finally on the cake, I worked on understanding how I could make those limes. By then, it's already 1:30 a.m. and I'm trying to figure out how to make the lime look as real as possible. So once I was successful and it was satisfactory enough, I placed it on the cake before I went to bed. I slept for a couple hours and the first thing I did waking up was to start making the vodka bottle. I did cheat on this one because I didn't not just use a knife. I used a cookie cutter and I reduced it just like I did for the soccer jerseys that I used a onesie for baby shower. For this one, I used a cookie cutter that's like for a board. Just by cutting it on one side, then it looked like a bottle. I stamped Tequila 2026 on it, and that was the label of the tequila bottle, all made, plus a little ribbon that now I wanted to be black because on all the Don Julio I found online, they had those around the bottle, so I wanted to match the design as much as possible. And placing the tequila bottle on the cake, I realized I won't have enough room to write the name of the birthday boy, which is not possible. So as the sun came up, I was making those letters to try and figure out the best placement for his name before continuing any other decoration to make sure I would not have to cut his name, Pedro Oswaldo, in half anyway in between the glass or above the tequila bottle that maybe I had to do smaller at this point. To make the lime, you want to make a bowl of fondant that's slightly oval like your lime in real life would be, and then cut it in quarters. Once you have your quarters displayed, you shape them a little bit so they look more wrinkled or more curved than they would be from a simple oval, cutting them straight with a knife. And you will flatten some dark green fondant to imitate the skin of the lime. Wrap it around the rounded edge of your quarter and you cut the green following the edges of your white shape so it imitates the skin of the lime. Now for the inside of the fruit, I used a heart cookie cutter I had, and I basically divide the heart shape in 2 and then reshape it with my hands so it looks flatter on the top. What you want is some white to show between the skin and the inside light green of the lime. You can use a Q-tip or the tip of your knife to mark some lines in volume inside your lime so it looks more real. And there you have your lime quarters, super easy to make. You can display them on your cake as you please, making your cake design not really be symmetrical, but look balanced. And you can also try to hide some defects that you would still have on your tier cover, because really that's what decorations are allowing you. And that's where you can tell that I am adapting the design of the cake as I go, because sometimes you just encounter some bumps in the road, and for your design to look good in the end, there's like a crack or maybe a tear that you want to hide. Put it this way, your decorations are your perfect opportunity to fix your fails. You will use them to hide any defect you don't want visible on the final result. And as I was painting by hand in silver the glass, the cocktail bottle, the tequila bottle, I realized, oh, I also have the metallic grain. So I started giving a little brush of metallic grain inside the limes. This may not be needed, but it just worked for that cake. That's an option for you to do as well. It adds a pop of fiesta to the cake, and it was quite beautiful in the end. Et voilà, your cake is ready. Thank you for watching.